Hi, hello, salutations mint lovers, the mayor will have you now. The last Rivals video did pretty well, so we're keeping the momentum going and slightly restructuring how these come out. Last time we tackled strategists, then vanguards, roles that are a bit underrepresented in a roster that's already very duelist heavy, which makes today kind of ironic because yeah, we're finally talking duelists. Strategists can be split into sort of three distinct classifications, but duelists have 4 different roles. Instead of dumping everything in a single bloated episode and splitting this into 2 parts, today I'm designing 2 duelists and 2 more will come later because 3 is already a lot for a weekly video and I might just kill someone at 4. Duelists get flattened a lot in discussions because a very loud minority of DPS players are dim-witted idiots with no special awareness who log on the game to make kills and nothing else, and this gets duelists a bad rep. But there's way more texture to the role than that. Each duelists have distinct strength in certain comps that should be taken advantage of, so for this mini batch, I'm covering 4 distinct duelist identities across the 2 parts. A poke duelist, a sustain duelist, a dive duelist, and a brawler. Today, you're getting 2 of those. The other 2 are coming next. Everything clear? Cool, let's get into it. Nova is our sustainer of the day, although he has a bit of utility that makes him bleed ever so slightly into strategist territory. Difficulty wise, I'd put him at 2, maybe 3 stars. He's readable, intuitive, but he asks you to think just a little ahead of time instead of reacting last second. A lot of you must know him, but just like quick catch up so that we're all on the same page. Nova is Richard Rider, tied to the Nova Force and the World Mind. Space cop energy, basically. Fly capable, absurd cosmic firepower, but usually portrayed as someone who has to manage that power rather than just dump it all at once. That philosophy fits this kid pretty well. Mobility first, because it defines him. Nova flies permanently. He does not have a way to ground himself, boasts a strength and a weakness, as you know. Pokes. You're always above the fight, but you're always visible. To compensate, he has a charge ability tied to stamina that lets him cover medium distances quickly, a controlled burst of speed, and more on the side of advanced charge than human torches. Enough to reposition, chase, or disengage, but most importantly, come to your allies because of a special ability we'll discuss in a bit. Let's start with his main firepower. Nova's primary is a continuous laser, long range, consistent damage, headshot compatible. Nothing explosive here, the damage is intentionally modest but reliable, ammo drains fluidly while firing, and once you've been firing for a couple of seconds straight, you need a short recharge. You're encouraged to pace your shots, not max them constantly, mainly here for pressure as a good sustained DPS, and having your ammo count in mind is important as it translates to your current Nova energy, which has a bearing on that ability I mentioned earlier, but we'll tackle it just after this one, which meshes his flight with his primary. Nova has a secondary ability meant to close fights. Let's call it Nova Lens. During a charge, Nova can activate this ability and cross a few meters towards where he's looking, before firing a concentrated beam in a straight line that deals high burst damage to the first enemy hit and moderate damage to anything behind them. It consumes all of your ammo and has a moderate cooldown. It throws you directly into reloading, which can be a bit useful as you'll see, or to your detriment. But it's important to note that the damage doesn't change in relation to your current ammo count, so instead of following with a beam of sustained damage, you can preface it with it and activate it as a finish. Now it's time to talk about the odd one. Nova Charge. This ability creates a cleansing radius around Nova that removes debuffs from our allies inside it. The twist is that its behavior is tied directly to your ammo. The lower your ammo, the wider the radius becomes, allowing you to catch more teammates and function more like a proper support tool. The higher your ammo, the tighter the radius becomes, to the point where it only covers Nova himself, but in exchange, it gives him an instant heal at full ammo count. In both cases though, the same pretty important cooldown awaits. This makes Nova Charge less of a button you press on a cooldown and more of a decision you make in the moment. Do you burn ammo beforehand to help your team, or do you have time to reload in a split second to heal yourself? And is that viable? You can't really have both at once unless you play ahead by a second or two, or that the situation is very convenient. Another key ability is World Mind. When activated, Nova becomes static for a short moment, gaining a chunk of shielding. During that time, Enemies who currently have their ultimate available are highlighted. Lore-wise, the world mind can detect energy surges. Gameplay-wise, it's translated as information. You're training a bit of absence to the fight for awareness. It's useful defensively to brace yourself, but also strategically to warn your team of who and how many enemies are currently dangerous and who should be focused for a panic ult rather than a more planned one. These two abilities is where Nova leans hardest into strategist territory without actually becoming one. Overall, Nova is a sustained DPS who survives by managing space, resources, and information. His raw damage is slightly weaker than more dedicated duelists, but he compensates with flight, utility, debuff cleansing, and self-sustain. Left alone, he's incredibly annoying to remove, and when played thoughtfully, he makes fights last just long enough for his team to win them. For his ultimate, Nova shifts gears completely. His attacks become energy slashes. Holding the fire button determines where the slash begins, and releasing it determines its end, making a line. Upon release, a powerful beam fires along that line, evaporating anything caught in its path. The strength of the ult comes from repetition and control. You can line up multiple enemies, punish predictable movement, or track a fleeing target by holding your aim and releasing only once you're confident. It's a flashier variant of the Hela ult, trading multi-directional AoE for a better control of the space you're pressuring, but more responsibility as to where you are aiming. For the team up, Nova acts as the anchor to Wolverine, as he gains access to a fragment of the Nova Force, in reference to 2099 where he becomes the last Nova Corps. I'm sorry, my fellow tanks, but this would give him the ability to cleanse himself of effects and heal around half of his life instantly with a heavy cooldown. I'm sorry. A very fair character on paper, but with a lot of surprises attached depending on your playstyle. Wonder what you think about it.
Hi, Editing Maya here. I know Nova has been fantasized as more of a strategist by the community, but you can attribute that role to Sam Alexander. Here, I thought it would be more adequate for Richard to be a duelist, but if you want to know what as a strategist, sure, go ahead with Sam Alexander. I'm fine with it. It suits him more, I think. Anyway, back to your scheduled program.
Karnak is absolutely a duelist, but he's one of those characters that will get misidentified at launch. On paper, he looks like a brawler, melee-focused, durable presence, thrives up close. In practice though, he's a dive DPS, a very specific kind, high pressure, high payoff, and extremely cruel if you don't pay attention to him. I'd put him at 4-star difficulty easily, not because he's mechanically impossible, but because playing him requires restraint. Karnak shouldn't rush in like a lot of duelist players usually do. Quick character contest if you don't know him. Thanks to one of the commenters for suggesting him, by the way.
He's part of the inhuman royal family, but without any awakened powers. His whole thing is extremely refined martial arts and weak point analysis. The ability to identify structural, physical, or mental flaws in anything and anyone.
That's why his code name is the Shatterer. He can crack diamonds, dismantle people with a single strike, never lose his footing, and taunt someone with surgical precision.
And despite all the composure needed to be this effective in martial arts, he's kind of an asshole. Love him.
His entire kit revolves around weak point analysis. Karnak's melee is fast, controlled, and deceptively light at first.
When he starts hitting a target, he builds a personal analysis bar on that enemy. Early hits don't do much, but uninterrupted pressure makes him strike heavier and heavier. His attack speed slows down, but the damage more than compensates. If the target breaks line of sight or Karnak switches targets, the analysis decays quickly.
That's where more of his personality comes in. Karnak is at his strongest when attacking someone who's already busy, a tank holding space,
a duelist mid-fight, a strategist trying to keep someone alive, someone who, if they turn to deal with Karnak immediately, they can shut him down. But if they don't, he becomes a problem very fast. A pocketed duelist is basically free real estate for him, distracted, committed, and unable to deal with both threats at once.
Mobility-wise, he's nimble but grounded. He can climb walls, but he can't stay on them. It's for traversal, not really for escaping. It's enough to get angles, reposition vertically, or break line of sight, but never enough to disengage for free. One of his defining abilities is cover stance.
Karnak can press himself against the wall, hiding its model entirely from approaching enemies while still seeing them from this angle.
He's immobile and vulnerable if discovered, but from cover,
he can pounce on nearby enemy with a heavy opening strike that instantly applies a chunk of weak point analysis. Again, He's a dick. He's good at waiting around corners.
To accelerate pressure, Karnak has a focus ability. He marks the target, increasing his movement speed towards them and dramatically accelerating weak point analysis.
It also helps him track evasive characters through short breaks in vision, like the Punisher.
It's a commitment tool. Once you focus someone, you're declaring intent. If you fail to capitalize, you've wasted that advantage. For burst damage, he has a secondary heavy strike.
A deliberate, high-impact blow that shatters destructible surfaces instantly. When used on a target with a full analysis bar, it applies anti-heal for a short duration. This is where he potentially sustain heavy comps. Pocket healing stops working and suddenly those heavy melee hits matter a lot more.
Most divers in this game have some kind of protective ability, but as you've seen, Karnak is already a bit of an oddball, though he has a tool for disengaging.
His last ability is a quick step backwards with an invincibility frame. He has 2 in stock and it always goes backwards. Karnak with too much mobility would be a lot to handle. He's much more about positioning, so this is to distinguish this step from a dash. You can only do it backwards.
Since you are a melee though, your character will more easily follow the targets you're trying to hit, so you can use this as a dodge and come back with a haymaker. Overall, Karnak is about pressure and task management. He punishes sustained, long fights and divided attention. He identifies the strongest link in a team and breaks it. Teams that overreact to him overexpose themselves elsewhere. His ultimate pushes that idea even further.
Karnak enters a heightened analysis state. Every enemy he strikes takes resistance reduction through pressure points, and Karnak immediately gains full analysis on them. He stops being a single target threat and becomes a team-wide destabilizer. You can focus him down to limit the damage,
or you can try to outlast it. Both choices have consequences. Either way, someone is getting punished. For a team-up, pairing him with Iron Fist makes the most sense. Encouraging that duo highlights their differences and forces new Karnak players to learn restraint and timing.
Iron Fist acts as the anchor, gaining basic stat boost, while Karnak gains a small heal over time when using cover stand, reinforcing his ambush playstyle.
Little bastard. I would hate him. Very fun character overall. And that's it for part 1. 2 duelists, 2 very different ways of being a problem. Nova stretches fight. He doesn't explode people instantly. He was planning, awareness and resource management. Karnak does the opposite. He shortens fights selectively. He doesn't dive to kill. Whoever's in front of him, he watches. And he picks the one person who can afford to be bothered. If you don't respect him, he dismantles your backline quietly, while you're busy elsewhere. What I like about both of them is that they don't exist in a vacuum. They ask the enemy players if they're paying attention, who they're helping, who they are ignoring, and how long can they afford to do that. That's kind of the point of duelists when they're done right. They can act as pressure valves that force decisions, and bad decisions get punished. Part 2 is coming next, with the other 2 identities, a poke duelist and a proper brawler, as you can guess. More straightforward on paper, but still with some angles to them. If you have suggestions, characters you'd want to see tackled, drop them in the comments. I'm already pulling from what you've been sending. If you like this one, like, come on, subscribe, it's free. All the usual YouTube bureaucracy. Please, if you didn't, tell me why. I read everything. For now though, my hot chocolate is perfectly heated up and mixed, you guys, and my brain is running on fumes a little bit. I've been the mayor, and I'll see you next time. This is such a lighter format. Thank God. See you. Goodbye. Farewell.